Welcome to Honestly, We're Learning, a podcast from ClearEdge, the marketing agency that also helps marketers grow their careers. Join Lesly Vickrey and Lesly Cardec as we explore the turning points that shape a person's professional story, the highs, the stumbles, and everything in between. We'll bring you candid conversations with leaders and rising talent, plus our own take on what's changing in marketing and recruiting today. Because behind every success story is a few lessons learned the hard way. And honestly, we're all still learning.
Okay, Lesly, I have something I want to share with you as we kick off our next podcast featuring Ursula Williams.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited to have her on. What you got?
Okay, so today, right after we recorded our podcast, I went up to Summit High School, so the high school here in Breck, and it's my second year doing it. So I'm doing mock interviews with senior high school students. So if you remember, I went in earlier in the year because they were working on storytelling and how they could tell their stories during interviews. So it's a course that they've taken throughout the year. And they had vision boards created along with their resumes. It was really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
In talking to the kids, a few things were standing out to me that I felt like you may be able to relate to, and I think the listeners too. We talk about just how fast things go by, and talking to these two boys today. One is going off to college to play soccer, and he moved here from France, and he moved here in 2020, so right when the pandemic hit. And his mom and siblings and other family members weren't able to come to the States. So he's here with his dad. And he kept talking about how everything he's doing is for his parents and he wants to make them proud. And he was talking about how he's, a hard worker, and with soccer, he had a picture of Messi on his vision board and how it wants to be like Messi and all of these things. And he was saying a couple things that stood out to me. One, he said, when he's older, he wants to be just like his dad. And he was saying that his dad is so kind and so nice and really funny, and that all of his friends look at him and say how lucky you are to have such a fun, funny, nice, caring, dad. And it made me reflect again, like as parents, your kids' kids and your kids see you, and how are you, when they're reflecting back on their childhood and think, what was my household like and what were my parents like? What do you want them to say about you? And he just kept gushing about his parents, and I loved it. So I was like, I hope Grayson gushes. It really feels that experience of being loved, being, who your friends want to be around and to make you proud. But it kept also reminding me of, we talked about fear, and my fear for him was more of letting the letdown, what if he doesn't become the next Messi? And he's so, dead set on this is what's happening. How do you handle when things don't go well? And talking to him about different situations and scenarios of that, but focusing on, bet on yourself first. It's great to do this for your parents and, want to make them proud and be able to financially support them. At the same time, when you're doing it for someone else, do you really love it? Do you, how much of it is you?
Yeah.
And not. So those were just a couple little things that standing out to me just in talking to the next generation and thinking about like, what do they wish they would have done differently? What were their fears? What would teachers say about them? Really fun.
So, I mean, not to make light, because that was a beautiful story, but I love that he was gushing. I asked my daughter, for everyone listening, she's 11, going on about 17, and I asked her the other day just to, because I find myself doom scrolling and I get caught in these things that say like, what are you creating the environment that you want with your, and there's so much pressure, right? And so I was like, her name's Brooklyn. And I was like, Brooklyn, what's like the number one thing you're going to think about when you're older and reflecting on your childhood? She's like, Mommy likes hand sanitizer spray. For everyone else. I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. So,
Probably a good thing we don't live near each other, because every time I get mine out, Grayson looks at me and says, "Germaphobe,
oh my
germaphobe."
God,
And I
it's
say right back
crazy.
to him, "Well, you're on strep throat version number 2 right now. And if you just
I know
listen
she
to my."
just came home with a sore throat yesterday, and a part of me was
I know.
thinking like, "Oh God."
Yeah.
But anyway, aside not to divert, but that is my legacy is
Yeah.
hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
But no, I
But
love that story. I think, listen, I think the work that you do is great. I think the job market is really challenging right now. It's just a really challenging market for everyone. But I really feel for for new grads, and it was interesting because I was telling you earlier that there's so many different paths besides the traditional path of
Mhm.
going to a 4-year university plus whatever that looks like for you. I think a lot of our generation was just programmed like this is what you do. You go to high
Right.
school, then you go to college, and then you find a job. But there's just there's so many more options, I feel like. And maybe they existed before, but we weren't presented.
No. Well, and taking the time to be curious about what those are, because if you don't have access to it or don't know
Yeah,
what's available.
that's true.
And, the more people you talk to, the more ideas you'll come across.
Yeah.
But if you have parents or a network that you don't have that network or you don't have that access, you can see how it's much harder for them to visualize what those opportunities are. That's when you hope teachers, family, friends, coaches, all the people. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, I asked him what book he was reading, and we had this big conversation about different forms of media today that kids are using more than even reading books, but he loves watching documentaries. And I was talking to him about radical candor, and we talk about that a lot. We just talked about it on our last podcast a bit about having those conversations. And we were talking about, like, even for him being that leader for the classroom, leader for the team, leader for whatever it may be for his future, that you grow into that over time. And how that can really kind of help you, I guess, grow and evolve to think of those things. But if you don't have access to know
Oh
what those
yeah.
resources are, it's really, really hard.
No,
So
totally. I mean, I have that thought all the time, just as you get older and just, seeing the opportunities for my kids and like, you know, who knows what could have taken place if people were exposed to certain things
right.
early on in life. But yeah.
Well, that's why we gotta do these volunteer
I
times.
know. I know. I love that you do that. Well, I'm excited to speak to Ursula, so let's jump right in.
Today, I am so excited to welcome someone who holds a truly special place in my world, professionally and personally. Ursula Williams is the president of Staffing Industry Analysts, where she leads the company's global strategy, operations, and growth. She has spent nearly 3 decades helping shape the staffing and workforce solutions ecosystem, from strategy and marketing to product innovation, conferences, communications, technology, and community building. But as impressive as her title and career are, that's not really why I'm excited to have her here. Ursula and I are two-time co-authors, first in Together We Rise, and now in Rising with Courage, where her chapter, The Courage to Break Through, is such a powerful reflection of how she leads. And that's with gratitude, honesty, courage, and heart. We first got to know each other well while judging the Bullhorn Awards program together with Robin Mee, who is also one of our co-authors. And since then, Ursula has become one of those people in my life I can go to for anything and everything. And I know she'll give it to me straight. That is one of the things I appreciate most about her. And this is not Ursa's first time behind a Clear Edge mic. Years ago, she joined me on The Edge, where we talked about career transitions, leadership, motherhood, and the idea of if you can see it, you can be it. We also surprised her by bringing in her daughter, Dana, to share the daughter's perspective on working moms. And it remains one of those conversations I will never forget, and probably one of the most quoted episodes I've ever recorded. That moment showed us so much of who Ursula is: a respected industry leader, yes, but a mom, a mentor, a friend, a truth teller and a woman who continues to break through while helping others see what's possible, and myself included. Ursula, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Well, thank you, Leslie. That's quite the introduction. So,
Well, it's easy to introduce someone when you know them so well and you are just in awe of them all the time.
well, thank you. It's definitely mutual. You and Dana both have that media background, so you're one of her greatest fans, and she looks up to you. And Leslie and I have had a great career background where we crossed over, and it's fun to be able to work with professionals and who you have friendships with. So I'm excited today.
All right. Well, before we dive into questions, we're going to break the ice with you, Ursula, here and have a little fun to get started.
Uh-oh.
And it's going to be a rapid fire format. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. We'll take it easy on you. Easy. All right. Are you a morning bird or night owl?
Ooh. So I can be both, but my preference is morning. I love the morning.
Very good. Very good. I am a night owl. I would love to be able to be both. I'm working on it.
Sleep faster, Leslie. That's all.
Yeah.
Just gotta sleep faster.
So many things to work on. Physical notebook or digital notes?
It depends. Physical notebook when I'm really in my creative sense and I'm trying to grab something and on Zoom. And digital notes, I've got a really cool AI recorder that I can talk to that ties into my GPT that knows my background and what I do. So I'll use that when I'm on the move.
All right. I love this question. Most used emoji in Slack or text messages?
I'm more of a texter than I am a slacker, but I'm not a slacker, but I like Slack. But it's probably the red heart. They just changed it.
Yes.
So it's like the pink heart. And I'm like, oh, I got to scroll to the red heart. So it's a lot of hearts and exclamation marks sometimes because we get a lot of like great news over it. And definitely a lot of laughing. And, when I'm pulling in the favor or I'm sending someone some good news, right? We'll get our praying hands. Those are probably the most used.
Okay. Really important question. Are you coffee, tea, or something else?
I am coffee and not past 8 a.m.
No. Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
hard rule
Yeah.
on the coffee. Yeah, and unless I guess if it's some special occasion and we're out somewhere and someone's like, "Hey, you want to grab I might, but no, it's a pretty hard rule. I'm I'm caffeine sensitive. I've got a lot of energy already, and and so yeah, if I have it too late, it doesn't matter what time I'm going to go to sleep. Like I'll definitely have I can feel it. So, but I love just a really bold cup of coffee super early in the morning.
Oh, nice. I am a tea person. I'm drinking tea right now. I don't know why both my husband and I, we do not drink coffee, but I'll tell you what I do love, and that's something else category, a good espresso martini. And
I've never had one.
depending on where you are, they do make them decaf, just so you know. So you can try all
Yeah,
the
that's like too strong of a drink, I think.
Not before 8 a.m. though.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's something else.
Later.
That's the later in the day. But I do have to time it, it can't be too late. All right, if you could have this superpower for one work week, so a superpower for one work week, would you choose reading people's minds or super speed?
Oh, super sweet.
You're already fast.
Yeah, like it's just like nothing's fast enough. Like
Yeah.
and I don't mean that in a reckless way. I just think that the world with technology and all the things that you can get done is moving so fast.
Yeah.
And fast doesn't mean hard. I see people just work so hard
Yeah.
often because they don't really understand the ways that they can channel what they do through more productivity to be faster at it. So, and just to give yourself more thinking time. But yeah, no, I was just laughing with someone. Like my car has a turbo, my blow dryer has a turbo, my blender has a turbo. And so by the way, all of the yours do too. Probably you just got to use them. So
Yes. Totally.
I just think you can unlock your creative sense, your productive sense, just different levels of probably strength if you're physically training in something, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely speed. I think people's thoughts I've got a pretty high IQ and emotional quotient, like, so I can kinda pick up things, but their thoughts are to them. I would never wanna read that.
Yeah.
People can own their own thoughts.
Awesome. Well, I know you have quite the background here. So 3 decades in the industry is pretty remarkable. I know you and I have had the opportunity to work together for some time, and we know a lot of the same people. But what's more interesting to me is how you've helped shape it. And so, one thing
Mm.
I want to cover is there a moment, big or small, that shaped the way that you lead today?
Yeah, I mean, I think Leslie and I've shared this before. I think my entire childhood and upbringing has definitely shaped who I am. My parents were immigrants to this country. Their families were immigrants to this country. Most of my family, they are entrepreneurs. They went into business for themselves. They took really big risks and were very bold. We were all raised to be bold and to always take that risk and take that next step with pretty high but reasonable expectations. So that pretty much, shaped to it. Earlier, we were talking about our kids and the confidence that they had. I was raised with a lot of confidence. And so that just shapes who you are and what you're going to do. I think at the same time, incredible self-awareness. um, we were we were raised with confidence, but also like to be humble and to be self-aware and to have a lot of gratitude. So those things you bring onto your your adult life and into your career life. I also like to build and I like to grow. Like I was raised in a family and in a community that was all about building and growing, and changing and being innovative. And so all those things I carried with me, and they really did change how I approached every single career change, every role. Being in the staffing industry, I was with a lot of companies that went through a lot of M&A activity. We were acquired, and that requires you to dig into different parts of who you are and what you do. And I think that all helped shape who I am and who I hope I help shape with their careers, right? Because I can look back and kind of, or look across and go, look, like I know where you want to be, or sometimes where they don't want to be, and help them as well. But I would say that it stems from pretty early on of who I am.
I could see that for sure. And we've talked a lot about that. And over time, Earth's just learning and leaning into your background and your upbringing and seeing, how you carry that forward with Dana and your now son-in-law and, the family in general. But also I think those people who you surround yourself work wise also feel like your family and get the benefit of that kind of upbringing that you offer to that. And I know, just when I think of your chapter in Rising with Courage, you called it the courage to break through, and we all picked a courage, but yours was the courage to break through. And Ursa, I know we go through a process writing books together, and it's I sometimes will say it's only a chapter. It's a chapter is a big deal, and it takes a lot of honesty to write the words that we're putting out there. And this podcast is all about what we're learning in real time. So I'd love to go there with you and ask you a little bit about that courage to break through. And perhaps what's a misstep or mistake that you're willing to admit, and what came from that? So again, a mistake or misstep.
In people's careers, I think like in life, each decade brings something different, in what you're dealing with and where you're at. And earlier, in my career, there are these moments as much as like, look, I was raised to be bold. I was raised to take risk. I was raised that, you can do anything that you want to do. You find yourself in this corporate environment that a lot of things are out of your control, and you just you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring,
Mhm.
and you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And in today's world, that's even more, right? Whether it's work, whether it's life, whether it's, things that we absolutely, the macroeconomic situation, political situations, right? So you just have to really get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then when you can embrace that and really tight into that, I think that's where the breakthrough moments really begin to occur. You know, for me, what I would want for everybody else is to be able to realize that sooner, be able to go, be able to be bold sooner. I don't know though, because it was the set of experiences that I had that were like, okay, yeah. And then you just trust yourself
Mm-hmm.
and like, let's go. Like it really means something and you really can do it. And there's the only thing holding you back often is just yourself or the decisions you made or didn't make. In the staffing industry, there's just so much M&A and so much that goes on. I was traveling internationally a lot. I was put in really incredible opportunities to run worldwide groups as probably the most junior. Actually, when I looked back, there was a time that I was part of a company that had 200 companies, right? It was Select that became VDR, and there were multiple finance and accounting companies. And I was the lead of the finance and accounting company in the US. And so I was chosen to be the international lead of the finance and the companies worldwide. And I remember being in there and it was like, it was just going okay. There were a lot of different international leaders that were much beyond my senior, and many of them owned their companies. And then one pulled me aside one night and he said, look, you're American, you're a woman, you don't own this, it isn't your own money, but we really like you.
Oh.
And we like what you stand for, and we like the way you think. Bring it in even harder tomorrow, basically. And I was like, wow, like, that was really great. Like I've won this committee over, and now we can go and do what we need to do. But I had someone to help me kind of unlock that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I guess a misstep could have been like I could have come in a lot more confident to that. But I kind of had to read the room and figure out how to do it. Had I not had that ally in the room, I don't know how that would have ended. Because it was really a great part of my career that unlocked future really big change. So I'm grateful to that individual and I'm grateful to that moment. But I would just say when you're given those moments, you really got to go. You just got to lean in and you have to make it just happen, right?
Ursula, as president of SIA, you kind of have this amazing seat where you kind of are the center of this industry that we're all in, and it's changing all the time. We all know that. So you have visibility into trends and data, all the things that are flying in and out at any given time. So what's the part of your job that keeps you up at night? And it doesn't mean in a bad way, it could be a good way.
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks. Like, look, how many people get a 30-year career and then they get to actually pivot into research and advisory that is helping everybody in the career, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
just such an incredible opportunity. And every single, it's been 10 years and every day I look back and I think, what a great opportunity. There's so much that's changing in staffing and workforce solutions. And at the same time, there's a lot that's staying the same. So what probably keeps me up at night is ensuring that we're able to get to whatever company leader, whether it's in the staffing or it's in the enterprise, right? The program managers, we have the entire end-to-end staffing firms to enterprise buyers, right? Your Fortune, 2000s and all the supply chain in between. So what we see our vantage point, and we're independent, right? So we don't, these aren't, we don't, we have to keep up that independent and neutral wall. So whether it's an editorial and they're writing a story that's truly journalistic, has all the journalistic principles in it, or it's research that has all the research rigor in it, we really are exposed to so much information. And meeting the customers where they are today and what they need, but pushing them forward is big. And again, think about it, all the different staffing segments, even in healthcare, there's 4 segments. All the regions of the world, our work is global, and we do reach all the major countries where the work exists. We have there's 224 companies over $100 million in the US, and 70% of them work with SIA. They're our members. So that's
Mm-hmm.
from 100 million to a 25 billion to a 25 million to a 10 million. They're all really different. And that's not the suppliers. And I haven't even started on the enterprise side. So, I think that what we have is something for all of them to make better business decisions, to have better programs to really help drive their businesses. Access to that isn't always easy. So what keeps
Mhm.
me up at night is just ensuring that they know where it is, how to find it, when to come to us, how to get it, and something we're constantly working on internally. Our webinars, our conferences, our research bulletins, there's ways that we bring that forward
Mhm.
and we push it out to our customers. But that's what keeps me up at night is, how do our customers know that if they have something they're trying to solve in their business, it's highly likely we have the information on it, and
Mhm.
they have to remember to come. I mean, you all know our what we have, but ranging from like an internal compensation estimator, we have a lot of companies that are like, I don't know what I should pay. But well, we have that to mergers and acquisitions, like multiples and deals that have occurred in similar type companies. We have a database over 15 years of data on that. To the more recent, what's happening in this segments. Like right now, what we're seeing in industrial staffing is pretty exciting.
Mm.
Right? And I think 5 years ago, people would have been like, "Oh, is that gonna go to robotics and automation and that type of thing?" Well, that's been driven by probably data centers, right? Which is emergence of AI, which some people are like, "Is AI gonna ruin the industry?"
Right.
There's a yin and a yang to everything. So, I just think opportunity keeps me up at night, like, the things that we choose to do to be able to get to our various customers along the supply chain to truly help power their businesses and just make them better and deliver those business insights so they can make good informed decisions on.
Or so I'm gonna switch gears on you for a second here because we talk a lot in this podcast about leadership as a very human experience, not just a professional one.
Yeah.
And where today the two are one. It's all in one. It should be of how we bring ourselves. And you have modeled that just so naturally. And again, when we recorded our other podcast, which seems like a lifetime ago, we surprised you by bringing Dana in, and Dana at the time was still in college. Now she's married and has this super successful broadcast job. And I'm just so proud of watching, where she is. I can only imagine how you must feel seeing her on TV and the wonderful work she's doing, bringing really important stories to people. But I still think about what that conversation meant. And I want the listeners here today to meet that version of you. And I think sometimes because you are in this really, important role in the industry, people put you on a pedestal and they'll say to me, "Oh, I would never reach out to Ursula, or I could not reach out to her." And I find you so approachable and have learned so much from you over time. So to lead at the level that you do and that you have over all of these years, what did and I really appreciated this because Grayson was really little when we first talked about this,
Yeah.
and I was struggling with it. What does the architecture of your life look like? And it may be different today than it was when Dana was growing up, but the routines, and I know you have such a strong support system and the people who really are with you, who allow you to show up fully without burning out.
Yeah. Look, I do. I have a lot of emotional support, like, from my entire family, my immediate, my husband, my daughter. I mean, they're incredibly supportive. We all, in some ways, ended up in these roles in our life that force us to be independent on the road a lot, working strange hours. And on Mother's Day, I got the NBC7 shout out on TV because
Oh.
Dana was over anchoring down in San Diego. I'm up here in the Bay Area. And I'm really happy I watched the show that morning, but although I watch most of her shows on the weekend. But that's just the way it is. And we don't ever have regrets on that, right? We're not the type of family, oh, it's too bad. We're like, yeah, you go. You know what? It's okay. We were together last week. We did this. So just having that emotional support is really important. And then just people that believe in you I think that's really important. My friend
Yeah.
group, it's not as big as it once was in the people I get to hang out with when I do have time. But they're all right there, which is so great. And they accept, I accept them for who they are. They accept me if we can get time together. It's great. But look, I am definitely a person of routines. So, because again, in our work life, it can get a little unpredictable with the travel we have, especially around the 6 conferences that we have in a year and all the other work that we have to do. So, I'm a big believer in, like, early morning, as we talked about. I'm out on a walk, most mornings. It's when I'm doing my greatest thinking. Leslie and I have talked about this, but I think every morning brings a reset. Stacy Lane just did a post on, how, like, she loves Mondays because Mondays allow for this, like, reset of the week. And I was so excited because 'cause I'm like somebody else who loves Mondays, and I love mornings. Like, I just every day you get an opportunity to reflect, think different. Mornings hit differently when you're out, and it's fresh, and just
Mhm.
everything's just kind of, there's a little bit more peace at things, and I love that. So that's part of my routine, staying really close to the people that support me, part of my routine. Good self-awareness. I think you just have to be extremely self-aware, and you have to give yourself and others grace. Like,
Mhm.
I really give myself grace because with a mind like mine, and like I want to always go faster and I want to always get more done. And, I'm seeing opportunity all the time. It's going to be hard to actually chase that end of that rainbow. Right. Right. Because it's sort of like it just it moves. And I love that. Um, but on the days that maybe I can't get there fast enough, or more importantly, the team, because I've got an incredible SIA team. The leaders at SIA are amazing, and they are a big part of this, not like, there's the personal support team, but you have to have a professional support team, and then, the lady leaders, like, I just think that that team just shows up for us all the time and all my professional contacts. So, the architect of who I am today is changing. It does change, but it's what you find is you have to have these hubs of community that are there for you and working for you, and you've got to return that. It kills me to hear that someone might think that they can't reach out to me because I'm like, oh my gosh, just they can just text me, they can LinkedIn
Right.
message with me, right? Like that's probably one of the areas I'm not great at is like having those kinds of boundaries. I'm not having conversations on LinkedIn, and I'm like, hey, let's move this to email.
Right.
Like let's get to meet. And there's just not enough time in the day probably to do all that I want to do. But those are some of my proudest moments when I'm in Europe and all of a sudden I get a text from, one of the CEOs of the other company or just someone that used to work for me. And they're like, I'm in the audience and
Mm.
you're here and what a connection. And I'm like, oh, meet and love me in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
because I just I love that. But I think it's like just a lot of elements, a lot of different people. And you have to be there for yourself, right? You have to treat yourself in the right way, and stay sharp and stay strong. And just, know what drives you, know when you need to rest, know when you need to power forward. But I think routine helps a lot
Mm.
in what we all do. Before we go, there's just one thing I think about what you do. And you all do so much, right? But just if you want to hone in on the marketing aspect of the support that you give to the community. And, marketing is at such a difficult word to use today because really now it's engineering and it's technology and it's
Mhm.
so many other things. And I think it just depends on what it is to that company. But, notoriously, it's an area where the staffing industry has underspent. We
Mm.
have our SIBC benchmarking and, we look at how much spend is put there. And yet today, and I felt this way for a long time. Marketing, it really is at the top of we say top of funnel, right? In marketing and sales, but like it is not just it is way down with
Mhm.
all the automation. Like you can bring customers and information and the companies that you power so far down in the funnel. And it's exciting to see what you're doing. And more now than ever, I think companies are understanding that they have to differentiate themselves, that with automation and marketing automation, they reach their customers, they can understand how they're engaging, they can build their own communities, even just on social. I think it's just so important that companies are showing up in different ways because people are actually experiencing who they are that way. And so, I think I just want to say thank you because you make the industry better as well. That's what we're here to do is really just make the industry better. It's what I've given my entire career to. And it's really great to have you in the industry and companies like yours and just supporting, empowering the organizations. So I love this. Thanks, for the opportunity and your friendship, your support, and for just driving the industry forward.
Thank you.
That clip's coming out as a highlight reel lesson.
Yeah, no, like it's really like we see it in the pulse. We see it in a lot of the work we do. We obviously provide a lot of solutions to companies to get in front
Yes.
of, the two ends. And that is what there's so many cool companies also like on the supply side. And
Yes.
they're just like, we want to get our story out. We just want to be known.
Mm,
And that powers a lot of these organizations and how they can build themselves differently for
Mhm.
for the generation of staffing and workforce solutions that we're going into, and it doesn't mean changing who they are and their identity, right? It just powers them. We had a research piece that said that the companies that have a platform, they can yield 10% greater of like their growth and the future and integrating it into their existing operations. It doesn't mean changing it completely.
Right.
And I just think that there's just so much opportunity. But there's also a lot of confusion because there is so much opportunity. Companies standing apart and, knowing like for consumers, like who are they? What do they do? The words all sound the same a bit. So it's just great to have resources like ClearEdge for companies to be able to utilize. There's so much that the companies have to do. And again, by our research and knowing what happens. And even this, like I've seen a lot of the leaders that you've had on the show, and it's just fun to bring them forward and for people to learn from what they do. So keep up the good work.
aw. Thanks,
Thank you.
Urs. Thanks for joining us. This was so fun. We'll have to have you back another time, and we have
Yeah,
a lot more mileage to cover, I think. So thank you again. And where can everyone follow you?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place to follow, and of course, live. Come to a conference. Like that's the best place. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Well, Leslie, what a conversation with Urs. And before we wrap, we've got to do our take three. And that's the parts of the conversation we'll be thinking about long after the mics are off. I'm going to go ahead and go first. And one of the comments that Ursula shared in a story that she shared with her career trajectory was really the gift you can give others and don't even realize the impact at that time. And in her case, it was she got a promotion into an international role and she was feeling like, it was going okay, but not necessarily great. And it took a leader really stepping up and being her ally and saying, basically, we believe in you. You've got this. I really like what I'm seeing. But it took that person taking that small moment that they probably didn't even realize in that moment what an impact it would make all of these years later, probably 20 years later. She's sharing that story from that moment in her career that really helped put that spark in her to become really successful in that role, which then led to a lot of her future success. So, my takeaway there is a reminder that sometimes our small acts that we don't even realize we're doing, but we really have to be intentional, I think, in doing it,
Hmm.
more intentional. So we do realize what we're doing is to give that gift to people. So when you see something, you say something, to them to really help them see in themselves what we see in them, which sometimes they don't always see. So think of small acts of kindness that you can do for leaders, future leaders, members of your team, where just giving them that one piece of feedback can really make a huge difference, long term in their career.
Yeah.
It could be anything, saying hi to someone at a conference who maybe looks up to you or and introducing them to people, offering people opportunities to speak when maybe they didn't know that they wanted to even be on panels. Whatever that is, those small gestures can go a really long way.
Yeah. You know how I feel about that topic. So I agree. I think a lot of the times people notice things about you before you notice them in yourself. And so that nudge and that confidence that they have in you can go a really long way and actually change the trajectory of your career. So I applaud that for sure. One of the things that stood out on my end was, and this actually is a theme we've been hearing about, is just the impact of being raised by confident parents and the permission to be bold and how that has an impact. And I feel like with a lot of the leaders, we're hearing that theme, um, and that really gives people permission to take risk and to make bold moves and all that comes along with that. So I know I talked about it before of just, what you learn and how what you're exposed to carries on with you as you get
Yes.
older. And I am a firm believer in that. Now, obviously things can, you can change and evolve as a person, but it's the lessons that you unlearn. I know that the episode we just launched
Yeah.
ourselves, it's not easy to unlearn, but if you're in, that confidence is instilled from the get-go, it really, really kind of gives you that stance that you
Mhm.
need to move forward. So
Yeah. We talk about it being the greatest gift you can give your kids is a gift of confidence. So yeah, don't want to take that away from them. And it's easy to do.
yeah, that's
It's
true.
easy to give it, but it's really easy to take it away. All right, the last one. Do you mind if I do the third?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right, the third, it's Ursula did not prep this. When we prepped with her, her kudos to our agency really meant a lot. On top of that, at every conference, they talk about statistics and marketing spend. And year over year, they talk about how our industry underinvests
Hmm.
in marketing. And we've had some recent conversations about that. So, one, thank you, Urs, for that. But for me, it really stood out because it's like we keep saying this and people keep not doing it. But those who are doing it and are doing it really well, we see huge results coming out of that for them, like really good results. And other companies will ask, well, how much did they invest? And, they'll ask some disclaimer questions, which are, good questions, but even answering them, they still, hesitate on that. So I would like to just say I appreciated the fact that she recognizes that and recognizes that the role of marketing, especially in our industry today,
Hmm.
with the insurgence of AI, so many new tools and technologies, the ability for technologies to connect that couldn't before, and the fact that marketing, and we saw it with Leslie Snavely's conversation, we've seen it in a lot of the conversations we've had. Leslie being the CEO at CHG Healthcare, the fact that she started in marketing and now is the CEO of this huge company. So marketing, taking a seat at the table and really playing that growth driver, um, obviously stood out to me.
Yeah.
Kind of self reasons, but an important message to hear. And, hopefully people listen, even more with that.
And it was also nice to have us all together because I know we
Yeah.
come from similar paths, and similar companies, so it was almost like a little mini reunion of sorts.
All roads lead back
Yeah.
to Serena and Ronstadt, all video, all
Exactly,
this.
exactly. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. We hope that you enjoyed this as much as we did, and we look forward to the next episodes coming up. Honestly, we're learning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to Honestly, We're Learning. If you liked what you heard, you can drop us a like, review, or comment. And if you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.